penultimate episode of Star Trek the Animated Series is a wacky one. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get into the episode. And I had to write this down because it's a long freaking title. How sharper than a serpent's tooth? Taken from Shakespeare, as we're told in the episode. Let's get into it. So first things first, we are on the Enterprise. They're hunting an alien ship that popped up, scanned a little bit of Earth, and then fucked off. The probe exploded, and they're following the signal of the ship. They find the ship, and it is the weirdest looking fucking ship I've ever seen. But also kind of cool. It ends up being crew members off. It turns into a big serpent. We're introduced to a Native American character, Ensign Walking Bear. And I sit there going, oh, a Native American character, really cool. Then I realized that it was purely for this episode because it has a lot of Native American themes. Which is great, like I'm all for it. And it's, from what I read, Dorothy Fontana had a writer who was Native American, and he kept wanting to write things about parasites and shit like that. And basically, she said, "No, I'd really like a story based on Native American mythology." And he wrote this episode. Now, it is a wacky episode, but the ship ends up beaming Kirk, Bones, and other crew members, Walking Bear, to a planet. They're shown around. The Serpent's sort of there in the end. But on this planet, it's a mixture of Aztec and Mayan and Native American culture all mixed up. And we sort of learn that this serpent had been to Earth before, and it had sort of poised itself as a god, which is another Kirk meeting God story. He really likes it. And it's really good. I loved the background animation on this episode. It looks really, really good. They turn some serpents' heads, and then suddenly the serpent appears, and they're taken to like a menagerie filled with different aliens, an electric cat, a big electric cat, a little yellow cat, a globby thing. I don't know what the fuck this thing is, but it's weird looking. They are sort of talking about the history. There's a lot of talking in there, like a lot of talking. The Enterprise is captured in like a bubble. That's the big story. And they need to escape it, but they can't. They're trying to work it out. They're trying to move forward, move backward, anything they can. Kirk's talking to the Serpent. The Serpent sort of describes how he went to Earth in the past and how he sort of gave people the knowledge. And we learn that he gave them all this knowledge, but humans didn't make it right, so that's why he couldn't return. He couldn't. He gave them the technology. I don't even understand it. But all the culture sort of took bits from it and built things around it. It was genuinely, like, it's an interesting concept, a little bit Stargate-y, I thought, or vice versa, really. But genuinely, making the god an alien is really interesting. I think that's done a lot in sci-fi, but not a lot back then, because gods were sort of, when they handled God in the 60s, it was the 60s or 70s, it was a different thing. In terms of Kirk, they talk, and he sort of somehow, like, they try to escape by releasing the electric cat, and then they subdue the electric cat, and somehow that proves that humans have evolved more. They're not warlike anymore. There's this whole big talk about Kirk saying we need to walk on our own 2 feet and stuff like that. Spock on the Enterprise has worked out that if he pushes and pulls on this bubble, he can warp out of it and smash it open. And he does that, and they get out. Kirk and Bones obviously proved what they need to prove. And it's sort of it's another tale in Star Trek of humans not needing gods anymore. But at the same time, from what I've read, respectful to Native American culture. Russell Bates, the writer, was actually Native American, and he sort of intrigued Dorothy Fontana with his culture and stuff like that. And she really pushed for this episode, and he's still proud of it today. He talks about it on the commentaries on the animated series DVDs. He talks about it at conventions. Like, he's genuinely very proud of this episode. I personally, on this episode, I think it was a lot. It's saying the animated series. I think it's the animated series' biggest problem is not enough time to tell a complex story. Because what happens is you get introduced to some really great concepts, and then it's all explained away in dialogue. It's talk, 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 talk. And I kind of get why it may have been cancelled, which is there's a lot of episodes like this where they talk the ending. And I think that as a kid, you'd be a bit like, okay, you're a bit talky. I'll change the channel. Maybe that was just the way 70s cartoons were. I have not watched a lot of 70s cartoons. And it does feel to me like it was fun. Like, once again, we saw really weird alien designs, which I love. Really cool spaceship designs, which I love, which they couldn't do in the original series. And I would love to see the newer shows do some wacky aliens like this. We've got CGI, just fucking do it. But it genuinely, the story is interesting in that putting that religion in the sci-fi pocket again. But as I said, they have done this a lot in Star Trek. They're meeting someone in the past who had been a god or a pretend god. Like, those things have always happened. The Serpent talking, he was very eloquent. Very, very, it was Coco-chan. Oh, Coco-chan. And he was very, very, I want to say, very elegant in the way he talked, very, very regal. And the snake's mouth movements were really, really good. I did read that this episode as well was done by a different Funimation warehouse. And the writer, he said he loved the animation, he loved the designs, he thought they were really, really good. And I can't disagree with it. There was a lot of really good and interesting sort of design elements to this episode. I do sort of think that as a penultimate episode, maybe they didn't know it was ending, or maybe they just didn't have the budget anymore. I know the next episode I have actually seen, because beginning and the end is sometimes I did it with animated series. But this episode, like, look, the strength of the animated series are that it has some really great concepts that they couldn't realize in the original series itself. And I think that's the strength of the entire series. Really interesting concepts, touching on things again, talking about, and there's this message throughout the animated series of humanity getting better, peace, hope, we're not warlike anymore. It really feels like, probably more even than the original series, that Gene Roddenberry, or at least someone within the production team, was sort of laying down the framework of what would be TNG. And I mean that in the sense that TNG was always about humans getting better, hope, and progression and stuff like that. And the animated series does that a lot. It talks about, like, there's episodes in the past where they've had all these different species living in peace, and they talk about how they came to it. There's a lot of talk of humans surpassing their animalistic ancestors. A lot of the building blocks, I think, of TNG are in the animated series. Now, you may argue with me on this, but I genuinely think that the animated series definitely has a message that they wanted to tell. And certainly some scripts are fun, some scripts have a message, some scripts have a message, and some episodes are a bit silly, or some are dumb. But it's a very big mixture of, they want to be the TOS so bad, but they can't, so they have to do as much as they can in that 25-minute format. And this is one of those stories that really sort of suffers from that, because at the end they just sort of explain themselves. There's a brief introduction and then they just talk it out. And I get talking it out is fine, but I think that with a cartoon like this, that not an actiony, but a more invigorating coming to that conclusion, where instead of sort of having a 2-second, the cat escapes and then they subdue the cat, there should be more of an adventure to get to that message, and that's what the time doesn't allow for. I have been Trek Trav. Next week, the season finale. The series finale of Star Trek the Animated Series, and is actually, from what I remember, a really great episode, so we will be reviewing that. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next week.